What is up, Canada? What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here. We've got another news story for you today. And today we're going to be talking about, will it soon become illegal to travel outside of Canada? Let's get into it. So, do you think more travel restrictions could slow down the spread of COVID-19 in Canada? So I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. Do you support travel bans? Do you support limited travel bans? What are your thoughts in general about travel? Because there's still a lot of snowbirds choosing to go to Florida and other warmer climates than certainly Canada. And would you abide by new travel restrictions? Right now, it seems like the government's really just asking us nicely not to travel, but we've seen them, really throw down the ban hammer in the past. It doesn't seem unreasonable that they could be doing that in the future as well. And what are your thoughts on, should politicians play by the same travel rules? So we're going to call out a few politicians at the end of this episode on their maybe flaunting travel restrictions or them not necessarily following COVID protocols. So, if you guys haven't been paying attention to what's going on in COVID-19 news these days, there are now starting to become different variants of the strain of the virus. And so with this, it means that certain vaccines and certain immunities may no longer apply. And as well, as we're starting to see that vaccines aren't creating permanent immunity, that it appears that antibodies do erode over time. I think that I saw a study that showed within 24 months, give or take. But anyways, we'd love to hear your thoughts in general. Have you been following this news, or are you just sick of COVID-19? I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. But on Friday, Prime Minister Trudeau spoke out on the matter, and he said people should not be planning non-essential travel or vacation travel outside of the country, particularly because, as I said a few days ago, we could be bringing back in new measures that significantly impede your ability to return to Canada at any given moment without warning. Last night, I had a long conversation with the premiers about a number of different options that we could possibly exercise to further limit travel and to keep Canadians safe. He continued, we will have more to say on these in coming days. So today's right now Tuesday. That was Friday. Presumably, we will be getting some new restrictions on the horizon. But in case you haven't been following what's going on, here's what the current restrictions are. So Canadians and individuals who want to travel into Canada have a laundry list of health and safety protocols they've been asked to understand and follow before boarding the plane. So we've got a link in the video description down below. If you guys are traveling or thinking about traveling, we really encourage you to check out that link right down below. Let us know what your thoughts are. As well, I'd love to hear, just in general, did you actually read that document? It's a really long document. There's a lot involved there. I think that we need to find ways to summarize some of these rules better or make shorter rules somehow, because I just can't envision a lot of people spending all the time to understand these rules and restrictions. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. And so let's kind of hit upon them high level. So Canadians have been cautioned that trips abroad could be met with roadblocks due to the very fluid COVID-19 situation. So, there's a chance you could be stuck longer than you expected. And so if you are traveling, I think you should be taking certain precautions. Hopefully you've got like a traveling budget buffer so that if you do get stuck unexpectedly for a week or two or a month in another country where you weren't expecting to, because you can't come back to Canada as fast as you wanted, I think that you should be aware of that and should be planning for that, because I really do think the government is going to put in more restrictions, but that is my personal opinion. And what Trudeau's comments on Fridays indicate is a feeling that too much non-essential travel is occurring. I'll be honest, I know lots of people that currently are, undertaking non-essential travel. Is it for me? No, it really isn't for me. And it's not something I personally would seek out to do, simply because I guess I'm of two minds on this. So one, I really don't think the government should be in placing all the restrictions they are. And I don't think that there should be all these roadblocks to just doing human things. On the flip side, I also have no problem with being cautioned and told and asked nicely to do things. And like most Canadians, I'll actually just comply if I'm asked nicely. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. I know people are very hot on this. And so let's touch in with what the Foreign Affairs Minister, Marc Garneau, had to say. So on Sunday, Foreign Affairs Minister was interviewed about this all on the CBC's Rosemary Barton Live, and he confirmed Canada could invoke the Federal Emergencies Act And the hope is this could limit travel to provinces that already have high COVID-19 case counts. So understand, we're not even necessarily just talking about restrictions of Canadians traveling. We're also talking about restrictions of traveling to provinces that already have high COVID-19 counts. And specifically, here's a quote: "We are looking at all potential actions to make sure that we can achieve our aims. The Emergencies Act is something you don't consider lightly. But we are first and foremost concerned about the health and safety of Canadians. And if we can do that in any way that we have the regulatory powers to do it, we will do it." There's so many ways that you can interpret a statement like that. And I have no doubt that it was said with the best of intentions. But at the same time, like, health and safety is something that's relatively vague. And there's no like black and white situation here, right? This is a very fluid. There's a lot of things going on in the gray. So when I hear about regulators saying that they're going to use every power within their control, that can be concerning. So another quote was, "I can tell you that we are very seized with it in our government." I'm actually not sure what that quote meant. So here's a quote from the Emergencies Act. So the Emergencies Act is defined as an act to authorize the taking of special temporary measures to ensure safety and security during national emergencies and to amend other acts in consequence thereof. So then kind of going on here in CBC, Kelly Lee, Canada Research Chair in Global Health Governance and professor at Simon Fraser University, said she believes an argument in favor of tougher travel restrictions is legitimate, especially due to COVID-19 variants being spread globally. Lee says Canada should update its current travel rules to slow COVID-19. One of the key problems is that the definition of what's essential and non-essential has been quite loose and often undefined. I do agree with that. So the federal government and the provincial governments need to agree what exactly they're going to allow. So for those of you that don't want to see restrictions, that might be your best great hope, is that not all the premiers and the prime minister will agree together, and that could drag out any sort of new restrictions. And let's talk a little bit about Canada and U.S. border. So the Canada and U.S. border remains closed to non-essential travel until February 21st. Although this policy has been in place for a number of months now, there is still concern about infectious individuals crossing back and forth. Now, understand, this is just like the border crossings, like if you're driving over, right? You can still fly in very easily into the United States. I've known a lot of Canadians that are doing that. It really just seems like it's a restriction for poor people, in my opinion. As long as you can afford a plane ticket, you're good to go. So Garneau is hoping to implement COVID-19 testing protocols along the Canada-U.S. land borders, while the U.S. is aiming to improve its safety protocols at land ports of entry. And another quote here is, it would be easier to do if we have quick tests that can be done, because it's a little bit more challenging to do testing at the border, but something that we're looking at very seriously. And then talking about U.S. President Biden, he signed an executive order tasking some of his top officials to commence diplomatic outreach to the government of Canada and Mexico regarding public health protocols for land and ports of entry. So then one more quote here from Kelly Lee. The main thing is that we have to stop spreading the virus around. The way you do that is by stopping people from moving around. God damn it, you people thinking you've got the right to move around. If you would all just stay in your matrix pods, this would be solved. So one last thing here, political figures ignoring the rules. So we thought this would just be a little bit fun to poke at some of the blunders that Canadian politicians have made in regards to COVID-19 and some of the restrictions. So unfortunately, it can be argued that Canadians see several political figures embarking on non-essential trips themselves, and that makes it harder for a lot of us to want to swallow their advice when it's do as I say, not as I do. So here's some specific examples. So Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, vacationed in Florida this past November with his wife. Don Plett, the Conservative senator, took a personal trip to Mexico shortly after Christmas. And Tracy Allard, who was Alberta's municipal affairs minister, traveled to Hawaii for a vacation she described as a long-standing family tradition. Rod Phillips traveled to the Caribbean as Ontario was in lockdown, and subsequently lost his role as the province's Minister of Finance. So there are starting to be some consequences for politicians, at least, that aren't even following our own rules. And several other Canadian politicians have traveled abroad for vacations or to tend to family members. A number of them have lost their jobs as a result. So, at this juncture, it's hard to know whether you're coming or going, but it sure is easy to know the government wants you to do neither. The government really does want to restrict our movement. I have no doubt that in their mind, this is all backed by the best of intentions, but I really am concerned about the unintended consequences. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section. What are your thoughts on vacation bans? Are you guys currently vacationing? Are you watching this right now in Florida as a Canadian? Let me know. I'd love to hear your perspective and your logic behind why you think that a travel ban is necessary or why it's not necessary. Or do we simply need to tighten up the rules around what essential travel is and what non-essential travel is? This is a two-way conversation. I really do want to hear from you guys. And as always, I'm going to jump into the comment section real quick and just see what's going on. But I want to say I really appreciate all of you that are smashing the like button, that have hit subscribe because you're new to my channel. And definitely, we appreciate the comments, the engagement. One, it just makes me feel good. Two, it's actually really important for the YouTube algorithm. So again, love it, guys. Really appreciate it. So shout out to everyone in the comments. We've got Jay, Lara, the Hungarian Experiment, Orion, Samuel, Justin, the Red Rock Maintenance. Really appreciate it, guys. So let's check out some of these comments. So I had travel plans made to the EU, but had to cancel them as the Dutch government told me I wouldn't be able to enter, and the Canadian government told me I would still have to quarantine after. Yeah, I think that's a big thing to consider, right? A lot of people don't realize that if you do travel, the expectation is that you're going to quarantine for 14 days afterwards. And my understanding is now they're taking this a lot more seriously. So people are getting follow-up phone calls, sometimes follow-up in-person interviews or like pop-ins. So it definitely seems like the government is trying to enforce the mandatory 14-day quarantine after traveling. So important that you guys factor that in, because as we covered it before, that doesn't count as sick days, right? You can't take those days off as sick just because you were forced to quarantine. Red Rock Maintenance said, we wanted to travel as we have summer businesses and we usually go somewhere in the winter. Yeah, that definitely is a very common business model for a lot of Canadians, right? Like your busy time may be in the spring, the summer, the fall, and then the winter you go and travel. Same with a lot of farmers and a lot of other people that are in agriculture. And so Aberrant Art said, at this point, travel bans are useless. In the very beginning, when it first started, it made much more sense. It is interesting to see that at least with the current level of travel bans we've got, it still seems like variants of the virus are still making it into our country and other countries and other continents. So, you know, do you guys think, is the cat out of the bag at this point and there's no ability to get back in, or is there a chance to put Pandora back in the box? So again, really appreciate you guys commenting, you guys liking these videos. If you guys want to see us continue doing these videos, let us know. Sharing is caring as always. So share this on Facebook, on YouTube, anywhere that you watch this, because this is a 30-day experiment. One thing we are considering is potentially doing sponsors. So if you guys would be interested in a monthly sponsorship of this show where I'll call you out, it'll be relatively affordable. Right now, we don't have a sponsor. So we thought, why not just make up a sponsor? So let's give a shout out to Steve Snails. If you guys need snails slow, reach out to Steve at Steve Snails. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Smash the like button. I'll see you on the next video.